I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. Say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hello, American Patriots, and welcome to another episode of the Douglas Ducote Show. You had many places you could be tonight, but you chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. For instance, you could be watching CNN right now because they just kicked off at 8 o'clock as well, interviewing who else but Brandon himself. Hope they ask him the tough questions like, do you know who the President of the United States is right now? And things of that nature. Do you know where you live? Do you know your son's name? And things of that nature. But anyhow, there is some breaking news I would like to share with you all before we bring on our special guest tonight. The FBI, here we go again with the FBI. With the Durham report that's coming out, slowly piecemeal being put out, let's say, FBI supervisor of counterintelligence analyst by the name of Brian Auten, A-U-T-E-N, is the first witness today in the trial of Igor Danchenko, which is the Russian national who served as the primary subsource for the Steele anti-Trump dossier and has been charged with 5 counts of making false statements to the FBI. The FBI analyst testified today that he and a group of other FBI agents went overseas in early October 2021 to speak with Steele about that dossier. And during questioning by Special Counsel John Durham today, he admitted that the FBI offered to pay Steele $1 million if he could corroborate the allegations in that dossier. Now, I've been saying for quite some time that sadly the FBI has been infiltrated by far-left liberal ideology as well as Democrat ideology. Let's go get Trump, whatever we can possibly do. And to hear today that they offered this guy, which they already knew, by the way, that it was all fake. They knew it was fake when they went forward for the Pfizer warrants. And here they go and offered him $1 million, and he did not produce. So he did not get the $1 million. If Republicans take back the House and Senate, they have vowed that they will hold hearings and go after terminating those in the Department of Justice and the FBI for the outrageous behavior that we've witnessed unfold over the past, 7 years now. And it seems to be getting worse every day. So more to come on that story and more to come on where we're headed. I know that the Department of Justice today also has asked that the Supreme Court not get involved with their raid on Mar-a-Lago that took place. And we'll see what happens with that as well. Anyhow, my special guest tonight is Mr. Frank Lopez Jr. Tell you a little bit about him before we bring him on. He was born in Rio Grande Valley of Texas. His patriotism and service to others was a major part of his upbringing. The path started with a daily pledge of allegiance in the elementary school and Cub Scout activities. As a teenager, Frank ascended the officer ranks in the Army Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps and would eventually enlist in the United States military. He served as a military policeman in the United States Army from 1984 to 1987. He was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia, deployed to Honduras, and finished his tour of duty in Germany. Frank's father was a U.S. Border Patrol officer stationed in El Paso. After Frank's tour of service in the military, he followed his dad's footsteps, and he himself became a member of the U.S. Border Patrol. He was stationed in Del Rio, Texas. Frank's brother also joined the Border Patrol. Along the way, Frank became an ordained minister, serving his fellow agents as the chaplain and as funding member of the U.S. Border Patrol program for chaplains. Frank retired in 2018 after spending 30 years in service to our nation. Following retirement, he became involved in the political arena as the campaign manager for grassroots conservative candidate Raul Reyes in Congressional District 23. Later, he was the Val Verde County Republican chairman and SREC committeeman for Senate District 19. His resolve to preserve our constitutional values led him to starting the Val County Young Conservatives Club and founding the Champion Speaker Series, Conservative Heroes, Advocates, Mentors, and Patriots, Impacting Our Nation is what it stands for, the Champion. Frank is also active as a border security and anti-sex trafficking activist. Protecting a Life extends into his role as advisory board member at the Amstead Pregnancy Care Center, a pro-life ministry. He has been a youth pastor, Sunday school teacher, assistant pastor. Frank has been married for 30 years. He has twin sons. His personal guide principle is quite simple: worship God, love family, serve our nation. Today, Frank is running as an independent in the 23rd Congressional District in the state of Texas. And with that, welcome, Mr. Lopez. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and thank you for your service to America.
Hey, Doug, thanks for having me here. Likewise, thank you for your service to our nation.
Excellent. I appreciate it, sir.
Sir.
I went to a website today and I pulled up your opponent's information.
Yeah.
And I want everybody to understand that we're going to go over a few key points here that I highlighted.
Yeah.
Your opponent is Tony Gonzalez, and he's currently representing Texas 23rd Congressional District. It's his first term, and this is the district that you're going to run against him, correct?
Yes, the 23rd.
Okay. So Tony Gonzalez, folks, is a Republican, and Mr. Lopez is going to run as an independent against him. Now, here are just a few things that I believe inspired you to do so. First, Congressman Gonzalez voted in favor of the January 6th commission. He believes Biden was legitimately elected president of the United States. He voted for gun control and to override the state's Second Amendment sanctuary laws. He voted for $40 billion to send to Ukraine. He voted for amnesty for illegal aliens. Conservative Review's Liberty score gave him an F grade for failure. Recently on Fox News, Tucker Carlson said Republican Congressman Gonzalez isn't trying to protect the rest of the United States and stop this mass outbreak of lawlessness with illegals coming across our border. And finally, pro-amnesty group LIBRE, I'm not sure what that stands for, Libri, has endorsed Gonzalez. So, wow.
Yeah.
The guy needs to go.
Yeah.
Just from what I read,
yeah.
That's not a Republican. That's not a conservative. And I'm sure you, as well as most Americans out there, we're all okay with people coming to America. This is a melting pot, but we want you to come here legally, and we want you to get in line, apply for citizenship, and we don't want you to bring your drugs, and we don't want you to bring your gangs, and we don't want you to bring sex trafficking of women and children.
Yep.
That pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, that's it. And you know, Doug, I'm running as an independent. So part of the process for that here in Texas is that I had to sign a declaration of intent, submit it to the Secretary of State. Then I had to wait until the primary was over, and I had to start gathering a minimum of 500 signatures from verified registered voters and submit that to the Secretary of State. I submitted close to 1,000. They reviewed it, approved it, and I am on the November ballot. And as I was canvassing, as I was circulating my petition, speaking with folks across the board, Doug, whether they identified as hard left or hard right, there are some common, factors at work here. Certainly, inflation, the pain in our pocketbook, gas, groceries, the dismay and disgust that's felt at Biden's actions, shutting down the pipelines, meaning work for Americans, the way he abandoned people in Afghanistan. I had veterans who were hardcore Democrats tell me that for them was just a non-starter. And so there are people gravitating over towards the Republican column. But the other aspect, when I was canvassing these folks, is that they want their elected officials, Doug, to mean what they say, just to speak the truth. We are tired of getting played with. We are tired of being taken for granted. And so we have at work here in this district, this guy, Tony Gonzalez. He came out of Bexar County, San Antonio, the Democrat LULAC machine, the League of United Latin American Citizens. That's who he hung around with in San Antonio, Texas. That other entity you spoke of, the Libre initiative. Libre is Spanish for free. And it is part of the Americans for Prosperity and part of the Koch brothers, the Koch pact. So when you start doing your research, folks, KOCH, Koch, they are the cheap labor side of the Republican House. They're the ones that are aligned with the U.S. Chambers of Commerce, and that's part of, honestly, the globalist movement, Doug, that is endangering our country. Look, what I tell folks out here in the campaign trail, it is not so much about Democrat versus Republican. It is about globalists versus free people, because that is what they're pushing on us down here and across our nation. I mean, that is the agenda. And so this guy, I was campaign manager for Raul Reyes, who ran against him in 2020 in the Republican primaries. And that's when I was his, the lead researcher. And the more I uncovered about this guy, the more sick I felt in my stomach, because this guy is clearly a globalist. He's borderline socialist, but he is rated as a liberal. You mentioned the F grade of 57 by Conservative Review, the Liberty Score, but iVoter Guide, which is largely a faith-based organization, iVoter Guide ranks him as a moderate. So in this race, I'm running against the hard liberal left, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden puppet, as I say. And the Republican is a moderate rhino. And I say that he really is an infiltrator in the Republican Party. And I have been rated as the conservative in the race. And so the reason, Doug, that I decided to run as an independent because I was not going to hold my nose, pinch my nose, vote lesser of two evils again, man. I could just not bring myself to that. I saw so many people get slaughtered in the primary race. Good conservatives, America First candidates went to die in the primary process. And so as I juggled these thoughts in my head, I made a decision. I was not going to run through the primary because I knew that I would end up, not making it out of there. Right. And so I just made the choice. Look, there comes a point where we have to vote for principle over party. And I'm not advocating a wide scale abandoning of the Republican Party, but I'll tell you, man, a lot of people have awakened, and Trump did that for us. He exposed the work of the Democrats. He exposed the media's involvement, but he also exposed the establishment, globalists in the Republican Party. And so that's why I call myself an America First patriot, America First candidate, because I'm willing to take on the machine. I'm willing to take on the status quo. And if I have to stand alone, I will stand alone, which I know there are a lot of people that have been red pilled, Doug. They have awakened, and they're certainly aligning themselves with me, and they're affiliating themselves with me as well. And as I run down this campaign trail, I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing out in the field. People are considering me, and that's all I can do is, and I ask them, please consider me, research me, and if I line up with your views, then vote for me.
That's excellent. One of our mutual friends, Dan Govich, which he said to tell you hello, by the way.
Yes.
We were texting earlier today, speaking of the Democrats and some of them leaving the party and going over to the Republican Party. And we're talking about Tulsi, I can't even pronounce, I forgot how her name is pronounced. Gabbard? Tulsi Gabbard?
Tulsi Gabbard.
He was asking about, the fact that she just left the Democrat Party. Yeah. And, is this something planned to bring those values over to the Republican Party, like it's under the table type thing? And what I told Dan was, I think she finally just saw the light. And I equated it to myself. I was born and raised here in the deep South of Louisiana, and everybody was Democrats. And that's just what you did. You voted like your parents voted and your grandparents voted and so forth and so on. And I did. And then when I went into the military, was the first time that I realized that, wait a minute, they're not taking care of the military. They're not taking care of veterans. And I had many different things that were happening that were coming to light for me to see that. Yeah. But as I switched parties, I was very happy to do so after I found out later on in life how they were allowing the far left liberals to infiltrate the party and destroy it, and I keep trying to drive this home to people that the Democrat Party of JFK is not the Democrat Party today. It is a bunch of socialist people that they want us to be just like Venezuela, or they want us to be like Cuba, and they can't grasp that concept, and they're not doing their homework. Yeah. So it's my hope when I see people like, this past congresswoman, and she probably couldn't get elected anyhow as a Republican in Hawaii, which was where she's from or where she was living. But just the fact that she has left the Democrat Party and is trying to bring more people with her, I saw as a positive movement. And from what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, that's happening more and more across this nation. And are you seeing that when you're out there? Are you having people come to you that are part of the Democrat Party going, oh, I like this idea that you're saying, or not like a certain thing as opposed to what they're saying about your opponent?
Yes. So, one thing I did, Doug, and this is, I went door to door trying to get, my petition signed. But what I ended up doing was hanging out at the gas stations, man, because, that there's a constant movement of people there. And I had, 3 to 5 minutes, just get with them, tell them what I needed to get with them about, get their signatures. And so I was able to amass the signatures I needed. But some folks, I got into deep conversations with them, and if they wanted to speak, hey, there was their time that they were, giving me. And yeah, there is an awakening. I think the common factor here, the equalizer, if you would, is the pain in the pocket, the wallet, the pain to the people's wallets. That
Yes.
Unless you're super rich, where it doesn't really affect you. But even folks that the middle class and even people that are dependent on government, they got to pay for gas. So that's what I found to be an equalizer per se. And in this district specifically, where we have 823 miles of border, the chaos, the crossings, and what I call an invasion. Look, people get upset about that. They get up in a wad about this, but this is an unwanted movement of people into our country. And so I call it an invasion. And there are a lot of people, surprisingly, they call themselves hardcore Democrats, that agree with me that this is unwanted, unwelcome. And if you want to come into our country, you do it the right way. You come in, you knock on the front door. You don't sneak around into our country, especially, when people are waiting in line and all of a sudden they're getting pushed to the back of the line. I've encountered a lot of resentment from people that are in the pipeline legally, that are in the immigration process. They're fixing to naturalize, or they just want to get a basic immigrant visa of some kind. There's a lot of resentment at what they're seeing the Biden administration do on the border, and all the resources, Doug. I mean, I live literally 3 miles from the border, as do hundreds of thousands, millions of Americans live on the U.S.-Mexico border. Well, the only thing I would say I'm a little bit different is that I grabbed my camera, my phone, and I started videotaping or broadcasting live on my channel, Frank Lopez Jr., U.S. Border Patriot, all these crossings. The Haitians last year in the Del Rio area underneath the bridge, even Al Sharpton came into town, a race monger of old. He came in and people saw that. And I've been filming flights. You mentioned Louisiana. Well, the congressman here, Tony Gonzalez, was approached by that traitor, Alejandro Mayorkas, who's in charge of the Department of Homeland Security, who's going to be impeached probably. He's probably going to have to resign immediately after the November elections here, if he knows what's good for him. Anyways, the Alejandro Mayorkas DHS reached out to this congressman, Gonzalez, in the 23rd district, and they asked him to be the intermediary, go to the Department of Defense, and ask them for permission to allow ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, to fly 737 aircraft, commercial aircraft, Doug, onto a military airbase where we are training America's warfighters, and to desecrate and pervert the mission of that base to prepare those warriors. And those 737s were flying plane load after plane load of what I call illegal aliens into the heartland of America. And guess what, Doug? They were landing in Alexandria, Louisiana at England Air Force Base. And this was happening at the height of COVID. And so these persons were biological carriers for COVID, dumping them into places like Louisiana. And so Mike Johnson, your congressman out there, Clay Higgins out there, raised a big stink about this. But the thing is that it wasn't just Alejandro Mayorkas. They had a sitting congressman, a Republican, a veteran who claimed to be a conservative, who went and ran interference for ICE to do this. And so that is, it's unfathomable. I mean, had I been the congressman, I would have said, heck no. We are not going to magnetize or incentivize the invasion at our southern border. I mean, they already had gotten the green light, Doug, from Biden way before, when he was running in 2019. He started saying, if I'm president, you're going to come in. We're going to welcome you in. Immediately after he got sworn in, within those first few months, the Biden administration reached out to the United Nations and they said, help us move these refugees, is what they call them, into our country. And so what you're seeing is a globalist agenda working out. And what it is a basic destabilization or a realignment of power and globally. And so what has to happen, Doug, is for America, our sovereignty to be trampled, and our stature in the world must be diminished in order for that global shift of power to take place. And part of it is their long-term vision. And you've heard this before, is, they want us to own nothing, to eat bugs, and to be happy about it. And that's what's happening here. And this invasion at the southern border, Doug, is a big part of what they're doing to America. It is their plan unfolding right before our eyes.
Yeah, I went down there. It's been 3 years now.
Okay.
We went down and did several different border documentaries. And one of the things that I ask every law enforcement officer, whether it was Border Patrol or ICE or the sheriff's offices down there, city police that we talk to, I always ask them the same question, and that is there any message I could give to members of Congress, to help what you're up against here? And they all had the same answer, and that is, ask the Democrats why, the Democrats in Congress, why they will not come down here and go out with us on patrol and see this firsthand. Instead, they wear their suits and ties and they go to a detention facility only, but they won't go out there in jeans and boots and a button down or whatever. Yeah. And go with the men and women that are fighting this war. And I do believe it's a war from what we saw down there. And that was 3 years ago. From the agents that I speak with on a fairly regular basis. And I've had several of them on the show here. I've had members of the union from Border Patrol on the show. And they all tell me the same thing. It's why won't they come down there? What is it they're so afraid of other than the truth? And then if you're not willing to address the truth and see it for yourself, then you're doing a disservice to our nation. And basically, you're just crapping on the graves of our angel families. And it's pretty sad. I'm sure when you were in the Border Patrol, did you ever see a member of the Democrat party from Congress or Senate come down there and go ride with you guys?
No, most of the what we call the CODELs, the congressional delegations, and I worked actually in our strategic communications branch, public affairs, for a little while, and so we had to set everything up to take those visiting dignitaries, representatives to the border, and by and large, it was usually the Republicans that came down. There have been a few, down in South Texas, Laredo. They've been traditionally Democrats, in the representative seat down there. But there's look, Doug, it's beyond, and I'll just be blunt here, man. It's beyond Democrat, Republican. It is uniparty. It is establishment. It is globalist that are doing this. And I really hope like Chip Roy, who's a congressman in the adjoining district and somebody I would collaborate with on border issues. He's actually been down here as much or even more than our own congressman who was a Republican. But anyways, Chip Roy is saying, Republicans, if you win in November, we better do something. We better do something about what's happening. And he's saying that because, think about it, Doug, back in 2016, a man named Trump wins, and we win the House and we win the Senate. and they fought him tooth and nail. And so
still are.
yeah, and they still are, and they've gone, you know, they're out there, and that is the real challenge for us. So I have seen a few Democrats come down, but it's usually some of this dog and pony, elaborate
Right.
type of events where they just come for a photo op. They don't do anything meaningful about it. El Paso, on this border district, we have El Paso's Democrat, Laredo, and then there's a couple of districts in deep South Texas, and this 23rd Congressional District has flip-flopped back and forth between Republican and Democrat. But it turns out right now that we have this infiltrator in the Republican Party who has voted with Nancy Pelosi over 40% of the time on the most critical issues, gun control twice, funding this border invasion. Look, down here, Doug, what we're seeing is massive federal dollars being poured into the border district. I'm sure you've heard this, but these south-sided facilities that are popping up, costing us in the Del Rio sector, $144 million a year. Down in Donna, Texas, $18 or $19 million a month for a huge facility in South Texas. They have children's camps, unaccompanied alien children facilities peppered throughout this district. There's one in Pecos. There were two in Carrizo Springs. There's one in the adjoining area of Midland. El Paso has some. And so there's a lot of money to be made in moving people into the country. And I've said it over and over. There's two overriding factors here that's steering this. It's ideology on the left. It is global domination for them. And then it's also greed. And so what has happened is that you have our elected officials, they're either in it for the ideology, the money, or both, really. And so that's why I'm in this fight, man, as a grassroots constitutional conservative, America First patriot. Like our founding father said, give me liberty or give me death. And as has also been famously said, damn the torpedoes, let's just go full speed ahead. Let's just do what we got to do. We are in trouble. And so that's why I took this unorthodox, route to do something about what we're seeing. And Doug, part of what's lost in all this is not just the impact at the border. It's hurting our county sheriffs, our police chiefs, our departments, our emergency medical districts, our hospitals are having to carry the brunt of this, man. But if you go into the interior, look, Uvalde, Texas was made famous here, unfortunately, a few months ago with this school shooting in Uvalde. But recently, within the last 2-3 weeks, there was a high-speed pursuit. I think there were 8 or 9 illegal aliens in a truck. They crashed into an 18-wheeler trailer, and 2 of them died. Before that, a few weeks before that, in Hondo, Texas, about 110, 15 miles from the border, a high-speed pursuit. A grandmother and her passengers, her grandchildren, were T-boned. Several of the illegal aliens in that vehicle died. Brackenville, Texas, which is Kinney County. There's bailouts all the time, pursuits. Medina, Maverick County, Eagle Pass, Texas. It is crazy down here. And what's happening, Doug, is these high-speed pursuits end up in accidents, which strain our resources if there's injuries and deaths. But it also ends up with people bailing out and groups of 5, 10, 15, 20 people running around on people's ranches, on people's property, trying to evade law enforcement. And they get desperate at that point to evade the officials. And so they will do desperate things. And so it's just a state of being down here. We cannot allow this to continue happening. And so what do? Well, for me, I'm jumping into the race. I will vote to defund this insanity. It is insane what is happening down here.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I've reported on several times uh, is how the Biden administration was loading up on buses and airplanes
Yeah.
and distributing these people all across the country and not telling the states or the
Yeah.
governors or the mayors, even law enforcement, that they were coming and just
Yeah.
dumping them off. And
Yeah.
then we have the Texas governor and we have the Florida governor decide, well, we can do the same damn thing and we're going to send it to your backyard. And we're sending
Yeah.
them up to Martha's Vineyard in Washington, D.C. And then all of a sudden, the whole hypocrisy thing comes out because,
Yeah.
I dare you. Well, that's what they were already doing.
Yeah.
So are you in favor of what the Texas governor and Florida governor are currently doing right now by sending them up to Democrat-run cities?
Yeah. Look, from a purist perspective, I guess I just wish we would just repel them. Just repel them, return them, deport them, get them out of the country, get them out. If they want to come in, they're going to do it by the established process. That's my initial take on this, Doug. But there has been, I guess, this consequence, which is it once again exposes the hypocrisy, and it's been a pain for people, for these cities, and so I guess perhaps a little grudgingly I would say, okay, well, if there's any silver lining in this, because look, it's costing us money to bust them down the highway. It's taking our resources. Our tax dollars are being used for this. But if we're going to do it, well, then if it's causing them pain in the interior, well, then welcome to our world. Welcome to the pain we've been feeling down here in the border, where these are some of the poorest counties in the state, if not the whole country, Doug, where manufacturing left these regions. They either went deeper into the interior, like Del Monte, food processing went into Arkansas and stuff like that, or they went south into Mexico and into Central America and overseas. So these are some of the poorest countries. Our resources are limited. Jobs are limited. Most of our young men and young women leave these regions to go chase jobs in the oil fields or in the cities. And so we have to deal with all this mayhem down here. We have to carry the burden. You said you spoke with law enforcement officials, and I'm doing the same thing on the campaign trail, and even before then, because these are my friends and my neighbors down here, and it is a burden that we are having to carry because the federal government is derelict, it is malfeasant, and it is treasonous what this Biden administration is doing on the border.
Yeah, and it's the same thing that they did in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I did 4 combat tours in the United States military, and when we pulled out the way we did, and gave them billions of dollars worth of our equipment, it was just like a gut punch. But it's the same thing that's happening with what you guys are dealing with down in Texas and all across the border. They don't seem to give a damn about what the struggles the people have done. So when I talk about what the Biden administration did in Afghanistan, I remind people of the Gold Star families, and it's like, really, you're literally spitting in their face. And it's the same thing happening on the border with the Angel families. And sadly, it keeps growing. And, every week someone gets added to that, gets that title added to their name. And it's very disheartening, and it's something needs to be done. And right now, the only way out of this, the moment, is midterms. And we've got to take back the House and Senate and worry about the presidency, when that time gets here. But we've got to stop the madness. We got to get rid of these players that are in place that aren't looking out for the American people. They're looking out for their own self-interest. And sadly, as we're finding out, many, especially down along the border, are doing deals with the cartels because they're paying them lots of money to look the other way. And that is as anti-American as it can possibly get.
Yeah, there's certainly I've said it before, man. We have criminals running our country, the criminals, and they are funneling our money outside the country. $40 billion to the Ukraine, plus another 8 billion here recently. We know we're never going to see that money again. It's going to disappear. But the other thing that's happening is these non-government organizations are getting huge contracts for the white buses, for these soft-sided facilities, for these unaccompanied alien children centers, and they're all coming into our country. And you're right about the angel families down in Mission, Texas, down by McAllen, fleeing illegal aliens in a high-speed pursuit, ran into another vehicle, and they killed a mother and daughter, American citizens. And so that's not the only time this has happened. They broke into houses. There have been rapes that have occurred, murders that have occurred, and so you talk about the midterm being critical, and I agree. And people ask me, well, why are you running then as an independent against a Republican? Because he is not a Republican. He is a Democrat, literally, who infiltrated the Republican Party and sits over 823 miles of U.S.-Mexico border, is doing nothing about it but facilitating it. He is helping this pipeline get bigger. And you're right. You're right. Our United States government is working with the government of Mexico on this human influx, but those folks are working with the cartel. So at this point in our history, Doug, we have empowered the cartels. We have empowered evil, ruthless, depraved criminal organizations to be involved in the movement of women and children into our country. And they are impacting us on this side. Their operatives are also in the United States. And,
right.
A lot of these people that are coming in today, I was in San Antonio, 150 miles from Del Rio, where I live. This morning, I had an appointment with a human trafficking group, anti-human trafficking group. And I went by what San Antonio has set up, and they call it the Migrant Resource Center. It is a very busy road there in San Antonio. And there are people milling around. What happens there, Doug, is that the Laredo, Del Rio sector, Rio Grande Valley ship people. They bus them to San Antonio. And San Antonio authorities didn't want them milling around the bus station downtown. They're still doing it. But anyways, they set up this migrant center. They can go in, they can sleep, they can shower, they can get phone and computer access to try to, set up with family airplane tickets, bus tickets, whatever, to get out of the area. They get food vouchers. So they go to a Mickey D's or a Cece's Pizza, and they're just milling around. As I was looking at them, I was a military policeman for 3 years. I was a border patrol agent for 30 years. I understand human behavior. I read body language. I can look at a person for the most part, and spidey sense or whatever, intuition kicks off. And as I'm looking at these people just hanging around, there's a bunch of criminals coming in, man. And there's going to be consequences in our cities when these people come in. They're being shipped out all over the place. I've spoken with them, and I've asked them, well, where are they sending you? Where are you going? Well, to Florida, to whatever. Do you have family there? No. Well, why are you going there? They just looked at a list, and they said, you're going here and you're going there, and that's it. And so we're sending people unawares with no support of any kind, at least, contacts that they know, into these cities. And so they're going to become a burden and a problem for those communities unless they assimilate, if they even want to assimilate. And so, man, we're sowing some bad issues here down the road, Doug. We haven't even touched, on the societal impact of this, the culture. When these people are coming to this country, we're Americans. We have a culture here, and for the most part, like you said earlier, a melting pot. But that took place because people wanted to come here. They wanted to immigrate to America, and they proudly became a part of the American way of life. They probably went through the naturalization process. These people are being fast-tracked, and they feel like they're entitled to it, and that's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way of putting it. They feel like they're entitled.
Yeah.
Nowhere else. I mean, there is no other country that I know of, and I've been to many of them, where you can go to that country and act an idiot against their government, against their local officials, and demand shit, and not get your ass handed to you out the door.
Yeah.
And but here in America, we don't do that. But I do hope that well, I can hope all I want. I don't ever see Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, either one, going down there and doing anything about this problem. I see it just getting worse until Republicans can get back in there and take this over. But then at the same time, then we've got to hold them accountable for their actions.
Yeah.
And I think by running as an independent, look, I think that's a great idea. Here I am, grew up staunch Democrat and then became a Republican. And today I'm as upset with the Republicans, many of them, as I am with what's happening in the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
And as an independent, you're not held to the same, you have to drive it home that you're going to vote with us because that's the party you belong to. When you're able to use common sense and look at both sides of the issue and figure out what's best for the American people and my constituents.
Well, and so look, I am a constitutional conservative, man. I'll tell you that. I'm an ordained minister. I'm a Christian. The Democrat platform nationally, it is diametrically opposed to the Republican platform. But even so, within the Republican Party, to some folks, the platform, and not even the platform, the Constitution, to them, is just a piece of paper, Doug. Right. And this is almost sacrilegious when I say this, but it might as well be toilet paper to these people.
Exactly.
Because they have lost their moral bearing. And so, I'm an independent, but what I tell people is I don't have any allegiance to party bosses. I don't owe anything to any of the party bosses. My allegiance, what I do owe something to, is my boss, we the people. And so it would be difficult. It's a tough race for me. Obviously, I'm an independent. I have no backing of any kind other than the good people of this district, and God bless them, man. My fellow Americans, I praise God, Doug, when I get a $5 donation, a $10 donation, because I know that they just took a gallon of tank out of their fuel tank,
exactly,
a gallon of gas, and I know that that those $5, $10, $20 is food off the table in these difficult times. So I am very grateful for that. But I am very optimistic. Look, I've said it. Biden is the greatest campaigner for the Republicans because, I mean, all you got to do is point at that guy and say, you want more of that? Vote for more Democrats. And so in this district, I've said it. Yeah. The Democrat is a liberal as per the ratings. And he is just an extension of the Biden-Pelosi agenda. If you want more of the pain we've been feeling, more of the invasion, more of abandoning our allies and being a laughingstock in the world, then vote for that guy. And if you want this imposter, this infiltrator who has sold us out here, who voted for the January 6th commission, not just against Trump, Doug, but against free Americans exercising their freedom of assembly, their freedom of speech, the freedom to redress their grievances to their government officials. He voted against that. I mean, to me, he's a traitor. And so the choice is very clear. I will fight. I already went out on a limb. I risked it because I believe in our Constitution. And there just comes a time, look, I use this example, Doug, and I know you've seen it, but hey, look, you have lived it. You have been in battle. I served 3 years. I'm one of these guys that, we slipped through the cracks. We didn't have anything going on. The Iran-Contra affair was happening when I was down in Honduras. But anyways, what I try to paint a picture for people, and I say, you've seen the movie Private Ryan. Remember that guy upstairs that's dying? The Germans trying to kill him. And in the hallway, in the stairwell, is that American that is cowering. He has a rifle and he has ammunition, and he allows his fellow American to get murdered, to get killed. And so I use that example to say, I am not that American cowering in fear. I would rush up there, I would kick the door in, and I would bash somebody's brains out, because this is war. And when you're in battle, Doug, you have to gouge out eyes. You have to fight to survive. And I'm doing this, and you said it earlier too. We better win this. I hope we win this November election. I hope that the Republicans are serious. I hope that they impeach people. I hope that they hold people accountable. I hope that they defund this invasion. We have got to get a control on our national debt. We have got to say no to massive spending. I mean, look, no business could run the way our government is running. No family is going to run itself the way we are. And so we have got to get some common sense back, at the federal level. And then there are other people running on all different levels. But I am running as an independent. I'm not advocating a wide-scale turning away from the Republican Party. This is microsurgery for me, like I said, to deal with a very specific person in this district. And wherever I go, I've been visiting with people, Doug. They get it. There's some that are holding out, but a lot of people get it. And I will give you this. What I say is a word of warning. I've told people about this. Look, Republicans at the national levels, the strategists are drooling. They're rubbing their hands together at the prospect of all these people of South Texas, leaving the Democrat Party, coming over to the Republican Party. We're Texans, Doug. We're Americans. They've labeled us with different things. If you're going to call me something, call me a Tejano, a Texan. But they call us all kinds of stuff, Hispanics and Latinos and Mexican Americans and all this other stuff. We are Americans. We are Texans. But if you are going to use those labels, then let me tell you something. And I said this to Republican leaders. Do not take us for granted. Do not take our vote for granted. The Democrats have done that, and they have run us into the ground in these border regions, which are some of the poorest regions in our nation. Yeah. And so you want to know what Democrat control looks like? It looks like some of these impoverished communities out here. And then you see it in the big cities, the inner cities, what that does. But it's a word of warning. I mean, we will try it out. I've never been a Democrat myself, but they will try it out. They'll check him out. And if they see that the Republican candidates and the Republican incumbents, the elected officials, turn out to be like the Democrat officials that they turn their back on, they'll walk away from the Republican Party as well, Doug. And so there needs to be accountability, and there needs to be a sense of servanthood by our elected officials. They are not above us. They work for us. They are public servants.
Yeah, and from anybody on the outside looking in wouldn't know that.
Yeah. Well, the way it is right now. Yep.
Frank, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. Where can people find you on social media so they can support you? Yeah,
they can go to my website, which is Frank4 frankcd23.com, Frank the number 4,
Okay.
cd23.com, frank4cd23.com, or they can go to my Facebook, YouTube. They're the same name, Frank Lopez Jr., U.S. Border Patriot. Frank Lopez Jr., U.S. Border Patriot.
Okay, and I will also put that in my community section, so people can just go there and click on a link and see everything they can. And if they can have the ability to donate to your campaign, then so much better.
Yes, sir.
Frank Lopez Jr., thank you very, very much for coming on the show. Thank you for your service to this nation. I think you're doing a great job, and we support you.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it. God bless you.
God bless you. Take care, brother.
Thank you.
Folks, I've been asked by several people in the past few hours prior to starting the show tonight, why do I care so much about Texas? Why do I want to talk about Texas? Why did I go down to Texas? Listen, if Texas falls, the Union falls. It's that simple. We have to maintain that huge state. We cannot allow Democrats and their far left liberal agenda to take over Texas. And from what you heard tonight, if you heard the same thing I heard and the same thing that I read to you about Tony Gonzalez, the Republican, then you know that it's happening on the Republican side in the state of Texas. And that can't stand. We cannot lose Texas. Because when that happens, if that happens, and God forbid, let's hope it doesn't, but if it does, it's over with. It's that simple. So that's why it is important to me, and it should be important to every American out there, especially an American patriot, somebody with conservative ideas, somebody that believes in God and believes in our Constitution, that you do everything in your power to help support those that are running in Texas, whether it's an independent or a Republican against a Democrat. But do your homework and pay attention to what's happening if they're a Republican. And we just showed you tonight that Tony Gonzalez has a lot to answer for. And hopefully at midterms, he will. I'd like to once again thank my guest tonight, Frank Lopez Jr., great American patriot. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving in the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders and their families, our angel families, and our blue and gold star families in our country. And if you do not know what angel families are or what gold star families are, please take the time to look it up. They need our support because this current administration is not giving it to them. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. You had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me. And for that, I am forever grateful. I will see you Thursday night. Same bat station, same bat time, 8 p.m. Take care, everyone. God bless you.